So let's start with the garden variety, or what you might call the everyman's thesaurus. And this is the kind of thesaurus that you probably have on your shelf somewhere, the Roget variety of thesaurus. And of course now everything's online, so instead of looking at Roget, we'll look at a site called Thesaurus.com, and you have a picture on your page of Thesaurus.com, and you can see that it functions the way that you think a thesaurus functions, or that a naive person, let's say, thinks a thesaurus functions. This thesaurus covers the words of in this case, the English language, but it could really be any language, and it talks about what's the word, gives a quick definition of the word, and then relates that word to what? To its synonyms and antonyms, right? And the reason we usually use a thesaurus is because we've got one word in our mind, but we don't think it's exactly the right word, and we maneuver through that thesaurus to try and get to what we think is the right word or the right phrase to use in a particular circumstance, to better describe what we're trying to describe. So that's the garden variety thesaurus, and you can see on your page here that we have one term from that thesaurus, and this term is information, and it's defined as its part of speech. In this case, it's a noun. Quick definition: facts or news. And then a whole bunch of synonyms, other words that might reflect this meaning of information, the kind of news or events meaning of information. Other words that you might also use instead of the word information are listed under synonyms, and what it's opposed to are listed under antonyms. Okay, all very straightforward. So what we want to do with this is reverse engineer it. Use our technique of taking web pages apart to try and say, well, what would be the structure of this kind of thesaurus? So in the second image on your page, you have a little, my attempt to do a quick model of this kind of thesaurus, and I'm calling it the common thesaurus. So the root element of the thesaurus is, in this case, the common thesaurus, and the common thesaurus consists of a set of terms. Each term has an ID, and hopefully you're really getting used to this idea that things have IDs, and in this case, it's the ID of the term. Each term has a part of speech. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, gee, I might be able to put an enumerated list on that part of speech, because there's only a limited number of parts of speech, and I can define that limited number of parts of speech and make it a little bit easier to enter and keep consistency in the specification of that part of speech. Okay, all very straightforward so far. Every term has an ID, and every term has a part of speech. In the case of the term that we're looking at, information, its part of speech is noun. Okay, then it has a definition, and notice that the definition there I'm saying is not a complex definition, not multiple paragraphs, really just one string, one unit, say let's like one long paragraph or even one sentence definition, and that fits kind of our use here. Really, we're going to just create a couple of words that define it. The definition is not really the point of the thesaurus in this case. The point of the thesaurus is getting you from a word to other words that are like it, or other words that are diametrically opposed to it. So it's got a name, obviously. In this case, the name is information. So this term name is information, and its definition is no more than one paragraph, no formatting, no complex inline model, nothing like that. And then it has a set of synonym ref IDs and antonym ref IDs. The synonym ref IDs have the ID ref data type, even though it's not shown in this image here. They have the ID ref data type. The antonym ref IDs also have the ID ref type. And of course, the ID of the term has the ID data type. So the only thing that is even remotely complex about this little piece of schema is the idea of what do the synonyms and antonyms point to. They're ref IDs, right? So they point to some other ID, but what ID do they point to? And hopefully at this point in your development, that's not an incomprehensible question, and in fact, maybe you've already jumped to the answer that they point to the IDs of other terms. So I have a very, very simple structure here that just consists of terms, and every term points to other terms. Now, what kind of access structure would you call synonym ref ID and antonym ref ID? Think about it for a moment, and I hope you come to the idea that these are associations. One term is associated with other terms, point-to-point connection between a term and its synonyms, between a term and its antonyms. Okay, so that's pretty much it. It's a pretty straightforward structure. Doesn't take much to represent this, and so we're probably not going to get a whole lot out of it. And in fact, we only get what the common person gets out of a common thesaurus, which is a list of terms and their synonyms and antonyms. One other thing of note: how is the thesaurus organized? Think about Roget. And you'll see that, well, the major way that this form of thesaurus is organized is by an index of term titles. So in addition to the associations between one term and another, to its synonyms and antonyms, we also will generally, when we display this kind of thesaurus, display it as an alphabetical list of terms and allow people to literally go down to the term they want, find the term they want, and then find other terms that are similar and dissimilar to it. That's pretty much it. That's the common thesaurus.